Welcome to the Prog Talks by the Progspace. Welcome to the Prog Talks, an interview series by the Progspace where we will be talking to musicians in all corners of the progressive music scene. Welcome back to the Prog Talks, everyone. Once again with Uncle Prog, that's me. And today I have a fellow Norwegian on the Prog Talks. This is my friend Marius Leirånes. How are you doing, Marius?
I'm doing pretty fine, Rune. Thank you for asking.
I'm so glad you wanted to be on because I've been enjoying now for a little over a month your first solo album, Langtidsperspektiv. It was released on the 23rd of July. How has the feedback been? It's been out for a month now. What's the talk?
Well, the feedback has been pretty good, actually. Many of the old fan base, actually, it seems like they appreciate this kind of music. I thought maybe I would find a new sort of fan base for this music. But it looks like most of the Pixie Ninja fan base also appreciate this style.
There's an overlap.
For me, I think it sounds like a totally new experience. But many people say that they can hear Pixie Ninja relations to this kind of music. I don't know how or why, but maybe it's the ears who listen.
Well, I sort of agree with them. Of course, this album is quite a different take on your music, but it's sort of noticeable that it's your DNA in the music, you know, your style of composing music. So even if it is different than Pixie Ninja, I'm not surprised that there is an overlap of people who like it. You know, not everyone will be familiar with you or Pixie Ninja or whatever. So could you tell me a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Well, I am what I am and I do what I do. But well, let's say I play music and I work and play music. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I don't know how deep you want me to go.
No, I'd love you to talk a little bit about, of course, this solo album, but also, you know, you mentioned Pixie Ninja, which of course is your other project. So you know, what do you do in the bands in your project, and what instruments do you play? What is your role in both, of course, in your solo work, but also in Pixie Ninja?
Well, primarily, I'm a guitarist. I played guitar for many years, but I think I suck at playing guitar. So I got booted to being the bass player.
I see.
So, well, it's half true. Jostein, when me and we got together and play, he's much better guitar player than I am. So I thought maybe I'd try bass. And today I love playing bass. I could not think to play another instrument on stage live.
Yeah.
But also, I don't know. I play everything. I play keyboards, I play bells, I play everything I can get my hands on. I love making sounds and music. I'm not into only one instrument. I'm not practicing only one instrument. I like playing with sounds. So I always try to hook up some pedals and try to make music with whatever I have in the area.
Yeah, and I guess that also goes into your composing then, because of course you're also a composer now with your solo album, but also with Pixie Ninja. And would that mean that you don't only compose on the bass or the guitar as well, but you use all kinds of different... How is your compositional, you know, the way you do that?
Well, I often start with an idea. It often comes from maybe just one sound, a layer of ambience or something like that, and then I can add some bass and add some synthesizers. I try to play some drums, but I'm terrible at playing drums, so I leave those to other people I know.
Yeah.
So I can play some scratch drums, some lousy shit, but I send them over to my friends and musical colleagues, and they fix the rest, of course. But that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
I think.
So with the drums, for instance, you create a framework that a drummer can work from. That's what you. That's how you.
I play some scratch drums, a lousy idea of what something I want it to sound like. Yeah. And then I ask them to please make it better. That's not my job.
Well, I would have to say that both your initial ideas and the final result is very good, you know. I want to touch a little bit on Langtidsperspektiv. Long time perspective, I guess we could translate it as, right? It's an album with stories, a concept album inspired by local events in the area where you're from and you grew up. Would you please tell me a little bit more about the stories that you explore on this album and where the inspiration to create the album came from?
Absolutely, Rune. Where should I begin? My family, they come from a small village outside of Mo I Rana in the northern part of Norway. It's a farm establishment that has been existing for about 350 years. Farmers. And it's a farmer story, or more of a local family story.
Yeah.
For me, when I was young, I got into foster care. So I actually did not grow up with my biological family. So I went from Mo I Rana to Saltdal, Rognan, about 15 miles, Norwegian miles.
Yeah,
apart. I don't know how many miles it's in English. Well, you get the picture.
Well, yeah.
But since I was small, I used to travel to my father to visit him. I still have the family after-name, Leirånes. It's from that farm. So I have a strong connection to that place, maybe a more strong connection because I went into foster care with a foster family. So kind of when I go there, it's like it's the feelings gets stronger.
Yeah,
it's like some identity shit going on in my head. I can't explain it. But anyway, for about a year and a half back in time, I was spending a weekend there fishing, hunting. And then I was going to my grandparents' house. It's they died 10, 15 years ago. Mm-hmm. And I was searching in the house. No one lives there anymore. So I was going through the cabins and cabinets and searching. And I saw documents, informations, diaries, and things like that. And then it popped in my head. Maybe I should write something about this. It's like when I soul search my own feelings, I have always thought it's like I don't have what it takes to maybe make a good rock album. I prefer telling a story, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. So for you, this was. I'm saying for you, this was sort of a way to connect with, your ancestry to create this album. Then.
Absolutely, something like that. So I gathered some information and I went back home, thought about it for a while, and suddenly I just headed to the studio and started recording. And now it's an album.
Yeah, now it's an album. Yeah. So of course I see there are different tracks on the album that I'm sure reflects upon different, I would say stories from the people who are your ancestors or whatever. You know, there's a song called America. There's a song called Shell Shock, I would say, if we translate it to English, right? So could you maybe not go into all of them, because I'm sure that would take a hell of a lot of time, but could you tell us a little bit about some of these stories that are featured on the album?
Yes, of course, Rune. If we take the song, we can talk about the song Shell Shock.
Yeah.
Translated from Granatshock. It's the same thing.
Granatshock. Yep.
Shell Shock, it's like post-traumatic stress.
Yes,
you know,
very much so.
Lots of the soldiers during the Second World War got affected by it. And my how can I call it? A great grand uncle, something like that.
Yeah.
He was my grandfather's brother.
Yes.
He served during the Second World War in if it was Mosjøen or Narvik, some place like that. And what he suffered from that from the war stayed with him the rest of his life. He couldn't talk to people, was nervous, shaking all the time. And I remember my uncle said that when he was sitting eating dinner with the family, suddenly just jumped up, took his coat and ran to the woods. He could be gone several days before coming back. His name was Bjarne Pedersen, and that's about all I know about him. He died long before I was born. Of stomach cancer. So, but I thought it was a good idea to maybe base some stories around him.
Yeah, and about the person who needs to be remembered, who deserves to be remembered, right? For what he went through, and you know, as a part of your ancestry, that's a way to honor him, I guess. Also to include his story on this album. What about America? You know, I'm also aware that a lot of Norwegians during the 18 and early 1900s, it wasn't the best of times in Norway, and a lot of them emigrated. So I'm guessing this is something related to this.
Spot on. It's related to that. In that period, many people from Europe, I would say, had to move to other countries like America to work, bring the food on the table. And I looked in, how do you say it in English? It's like... say
it in Norwegian and we'll try to...
ancestral tree.
Ancestral tree. I guess that's people will pick up on that. You looked at the tree, the lines of your ancestors. True. Yes.
Yeah. So I saw many names. It stood Canada, USA, Canada, USA, Canada, USA. So I asked my father, did all of these guys move? Yes, he said. And then I start reading a little about them and where they went and why they went there. Yeah. So that's when the idea America came into my head. So I had to write a story about that as well.
Yeah, I've found that interesting, touching. You know, I think most of us Norwegians, if we start to look back to our ancestry, we have someone who made that trip over to the US or over to Canada or whatever, because I can't remember right now, but there was a very high percentage of Norwegians that actually left Norway in search of actually a future. So that's another track, and I enjoyed when listening to this. Of course, I enjoyed the music, I enjoyed the ideas behind it, and also this fact that you are touching not only on things that are related to your family, but both this idea of your granduncle who suffered from shell shock and your relatives who went to the US. You know, it's a story that I think a lot of, especially Norwegians, can relate to.
I would think so.
Yeah. let's go into the music on the album, because you have a lot of very talented people from the Norwegian prog and music scene in general contributing to the album. I was counting, Jakob Holm-Lupo, which of course people know from White Willow, Thomas Meidel, Ketil Vestrum Einarsen, Gaute Storsve, and Trond Gjellum. What can you tell me about their involvement with the album, and what did they bring to the table?
Yes, well, where should I start? It's like, for me, music is to be shared. I like sharing my music with other people, colleagues or other people who enjoy playing instruments.
Yeah.
So I never thought actually to just do everything on my own. I wouldn't even want to do that, because when I finish one song from A to B, and when I finish that song, I send it over to let's say Jakob Lupo, and I ask him, listen to this. Is it anything you would like to add to the track? Maybe he says, maybe I can add this, or he can say it's full. It's not. I don't have any more space, because if you have too much layers, the sound image is already full. You can't put more and more and more. It wouldn't sound good.
Yeah.
But he did something for the music. He added a little bit of electric drums. He used his keyboard here and there. He mixed and mastered.
Yeah, he's part of the production side, yeah.
Yes, and also on one of the tracks, the Shell Shock, Granat Shock, I wanted to bring acoustic drums to the table. It just felt like this song needs the acoustic drum touch. So I contacted Trond Gjellum and asked him to do that. And Gaute Storsve plays guitar on Begynnelser and maybe other tracks too. I'm not sure. So it's in that way I like to produce music. Yeah, I like to make it and then invite people, and it's like a family thing. It's shareable. I enjoy it that way.
Absolutely, and the Norwegian prog scene has. I feel like it's since the end of the 90s there was like things going on there, but over the last 10 years it's sort of really blossomed into a fantastic scene with a lot of I feel like there's a lot of support from between bands and musicians. So would you say that the Norwegian prog scene is an inspiration as well when making an album like this?
Absolutely. It's like Jakob and Trond Gjellum, Gaute, those people. I grew contact with them when playing in Pixie Ninja.
Yes, of course, yeah.
And I think it doesn't matter what kind of music I play. If it's electronica or if it's someday maybe I would make a bluegrass album. It doesn't matter. I would always invite them. Even if they play prog rock or whatever, the genre doesn't matter much to me. It has never done so. I think actually, I like making music, and I let others label it.
Well, I think looking at those musicians you mentioned, such as Trond Gjellum and Jakob Holm-Lupo, they are also experimenting a lot with music, or not even experimenting, but creating music that falls both within the progressive, genre and things that are outside of the progressive genre. So it makes total sense for me that you would want to involve yourself with people who have this like open view on music, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Let's jump from Langtidsperspektiv to your other band, your other project that you have with Jostein Haugen that you mentioned earlier, Pixie Ninja. You guys released your debut album back in 2017. But I would like to hear a little bit, what was the start of Pixie Ninja? How did you guys start making that music? And you know, what's the history of Pixie Ninja?
That's pretty interesting. It's like me and Jostein, we go way back. We have played music since 2008-ish.
Yeah.
We've played mainly metal music, black metal, music like that. But we grew tired of that concept, and one day we wanted to try to make something else. And at that time, we were very into music like Anglagård, old school White Willow, Wobbler, and bands like that. So naturally, we started copying that music style. It sounded like prog wood music.
Yeah, woodland prog, or what you
woodland prog music with flutes and mellotrons and but along the way we suddenly stopped and asked ourselves, is this good? It actually sounds like a shitty version of Anglagård or something like that. We can't go on like this. We can't do this. Sorry, let's just pack up. And then we asked ourselves, we talked a little about how about doing something else? Yeah. What music would we like to play? And Jostein, he just started playing some random shit. And I'm like, wow, it sounds, let's just make something. Let's not care about genres or what it's supposed to be. Let's just make music. Not labeled music. We mold something and see what it turns out. And that was the start of the Pixie Ninja project. I don't actually remember what we called the band or the project before that. We had maybe 10, 15 names before Pixie Ninja came up. And that was the birth of Pixie Ninja, I guess.
Well, I have to say that I find it very interesting because that you mentioned that you guys were like inspired by Anglagård and those early bands, and then you made music that you felt like were like a lower quality version of that kind of music, because you ended up having Mattias Olsson, which of course was the drummer in legendary band Anglagård, in your album. And I'm sure if you had sort of contacted him with that music that you were playing originally, that was like an Anglagård copy, he probably wouldn't have been interested, right? But as you contacted him with your new ideas for Pixie Ninja, he got involved. Can you tell us a bit about Matthias and how he came to be a part of the band?
Yeah, well, if Matthias would listen to what we made before Pixie Ninja, I think maybe our relationship would be very short. He would hang up the phone.
Yeah.
Well, me and Jostein, we made the first. What was the first track we made? Polysonographic. It's like the track, and we made a demo of it. And then we were thinking about who should play drums. We should have someone who can help us produce this music. Maybe play some drums, come with other inputs. Where should we start? And we talked about, hey, Mattias Olsson. Let's reach out and let's send him the music and
let's try.
Let's hear what he had to say. So we sent him the music and asking him if he would like to produce, play drums, or etc. And he responded with, "It sounds great. Let's go. Let's make music."
That must have been a nice message to get back from a person who is, I'm guessing, was a big inspiration to you with his Anglagård stuff as well.
Absolutely. It was weird. It's like the same with Fredrik Klingwall. He from Anima Morte.
Yeah.
I have known Anima Morte from way before I met him in person. I didn't even know his name in the band. I just had the first album, and I liked it. So when I think about it, today it's weird to have Fredrik from Anima Morte and Matthias from Englagård playing with me and Jostein. It's cool.
Yeah, and I guess it shows what lengths or what levels you can go to when you actually, follow, because you and Jostein seem to have at one point said to yourself, let's just go for what we want to do. Like, let's just create something that comes from the heart, from the soul, instead of being like interested in creating music that sounds like something else. And I guessing both Fredrik and Matthias was attracted to this, originality that you and Jostein brought to the table.
Yeah, I think so. That's pretty much the case.
Yeah. Well, with Pixie Ninja, yes. You released your second album last year, about 1 year ago, right? At this point, Colors Out of Space. Mm-hmm. That, of course, was one of my favorite releases of 2020. I just have to mention that. So, would you tell me a little bit about that album, and how do you feel about it now, a year later?
Right now, I haven't listened to the album in maybe 6 months.
Yeah,
but well, I think it's a good album. It's more, maybe it's more proggy than Ultrasound was.
Yeah, I agree.
Absolutely, but still, it has the. I think we managed to keep the Pixie Ninja sound pretty intact in the process. But the album, well, yes. Yeah, I like it.
Yeah. If you are enjoying this interview, please head over to theprogspace.com for more reviews, articles, pictures and interviews, all about progressive music. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. theprogspace.com. Yeah, so the album Colors Out of Space is, of course, inspired by the writings of horror writer H.P. Lovecraft. So, what's your relationship to his works, and what made you guys want to use him as inspiration for an album?
Well, funny you should ask. The album was actually... It was going to be based on what was her name again? Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, the Chronicles of Frankenstein. That was the main idea, actually. So, but I have a good friend of mine, a guy named Niklas. You actually met him in Bergen. The big guy, bold. He was with us.
I see. He was the guy who was traveling with you. Yeah,
absolutely. So I was drinking some beer with him one evening, and he likes our music, and he always attends to our music, musically wise. He can listen to our demos and come up with ideas on lyrics and art, the art idea of it.
I see. Yeah, so he's almost like an external assistant or someone you use to bounce ideas from.
Absolutely, I share everything with him all the time.
Yeah,
he has no interest in playing instruments. He can't play a guitar, bass, but he likes to listen. He has good antennas.
Yeah.
So that day I said to him, I have a new idea I've been working on. I want me and Jostein to base our next Pixie Ninja album on Frankenstein Chronicles, something like that. And I pitched him the ideas for the songs. I had everything figured out, from the details, from the cover to the back to the booklet, everything. And he just stopped me. No. Marius, are you insane? No, don't do that. Lovecraft. Use Lovecraft. Be smart. And I like, okay, let's do that.
Yeah.
So that's
very interesting.
It's his idea.
Interesting, yeah. So what about your own relationship to Lovecraft, and had you read Lovecraft, or were you familiar with the author a lot before, your friend suggested you use that as a theme for the album?
Absolutely. I have read most of the short stories, the famous short stories, like Colors Out of Space, The Call of Cthulhu, and The Mountains of Madness.
Madness. Fantastic stuff, yeah.
Absolutely, I love them. It was pretty interesting, actually, that... have you seen the Nicolas Cage movie, Color Out of Space?
Honestly, I haven't dared to see it yet, because I find it so hard to imagine Lovecraft on the movie screen.
It came out the same year as our album, almost at the same time. So it was pretty cool to release Colors Out of Space, and a few weeks later I was sitting here in the studio with Jostein and Niklas watching the movie, The Color Out of Space.
It was a major movie being released with the same, based on the same story, or with the same title as the, Absolutely. Well, I found that interesting, and I found it, like I said, it was one of my favorite albums of last year, and I felt you sort of grasped the sort of feeling or atmosphere of Lovecraft very well on that album. So that makes it even more interesting to hear that Shelley was the original, inspiration for it. So does that mean that the music changed a lot after you changed sort of the focus to Lovecraft, or is it more or less what you had initially?
Myself, I actually like to come up with the idea behind the music before writing it. So we hadn't started writing much of the music yet. So the Lovecraft theme, Colors Out of Space, was on the table before we wrote the album.
Yeah, before you started to really write the music.
Yeah, for me it's key factor that I have that I can think about, like Leng Plateau. When I thought about that place out of reach, the place no one has ever seen, it inspired me to write the music. So it's very important for me to have the theme ready, and the song name, everything on the table before I start writing it.
I see. It's I find it interesting that's the way you work, because talking to a lot of musicians, I hear people who have that approach to it, but then there's also people who work the other way around, who have the music really penned out or more or less finished before they even start thinking about the concept or the lyrics or whatever. So for you, the what images it brings into your mind is what helps inspire you to create the music, right?
Absolutely. I don't think I actually could work another way. For me, it's very important to have the pictures in my head and everything planned out in utmost detail before I start writing something.
Interesting. Well, another thing that struck me now, that's of course not on my list of questions, because of course I had no way of knowing it, but I wonder how the Mary Shelley album would have sounded. And I'm thinking, is that something, since you seem to have had a strong interest in that subject at one point, is that something that you guys would think about revisiting? Maybe not as a full album, but as a track or as an EP or something? Or is that put away now?
It's hard to answer that question, but I think it's... You could say it's locked in a box and we have thrown away the key.
Yeah. I see.
But,
I see.
Who knows?
So,
maybe.
Yeah, exactly. If you find the key by chance someday in the future, maybe, but it's not in the books for now. That's what you're saying, right? So I want to move on a little bit, because you talked about your early interest in music with Jostein as well, relating to more extreme music such as black metal. So what got you interested in that style of music, and when did you discover progressive music? And do you feel that there's any overlap between, the black metal, the extreme stuff, and progressive music?
Well, for me, I think when I or at least before, when I find a new genre that I really like, it's like that's everything I listen to. It's kind of square. I don't listen to anything outside of that box. And maybe after a while, I grow tired and I want to try something new. Then I actually almost never listen to the thing I listened to before, because I always stretch for new music all the time. So
what were the bands that if you were to mention some of the bands when you were sort of in your black metal phase that were interesting to you back then?
Well, I hope the Norwegian black metal fans won't shoot me for saying this, but actually, the Norwegian true black metal is actually maybe not my favorite style.
No, I see.
My favorite band, actually, the band who still is with me today. When I listen to it, my emotions spark. Have you heard of the US black metal band Wolves in the Throne Room?
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Their idea of ambience and a spiritual music building, I like that feeling, that woodsman feeling when you listen to it. So for me, it's a Wolves in Throne Room. It's my favorite black metal band today, but still, I really like Mayhem a lot. And other Norwegian black metal bands as well, Emperor and Tåke and all of them. I really appreciate them, but I listened to those bands very much before. But today, when I take Wolves in the Throne Room and put it on my record player, I still appreciate it as much as I did at that time. But all the other bands, I don't listen as much to them nowadays.
No. Well, I think it's interesting. That's interesting because, of course, I would say that a band like Wolves in the Throne Room is, if not progressive in the sort of genre-specific meaning, I would say that they are very experimental and, avant-garde in their take. So I think a lot of black metal, especially, after the second wave sort of started fizzling out, there were a lot of bands that did quite experimental and progressive stuff with black metal. So do you feel that some of that ethos is something that you that goes into the music that you create yourself, or do you find that separate?
That's it's funny you should ask that question, because actually last time we were playing in France at the Crescendo Festival, we read a review of the concert a few days later, where they stated that these guys from Norway played progressive electronic music with black metal vibes. I don't remember playing black metal on that stage, but apparently the reviewer thought we had black metal vibes in our music live.
Yeah. Well, I think I remember reading in the promotional materials for your Langtidsperspektiv album as well, talking a little bit about the Nordic sound, or which of course doesn't only have to do with black metal. You find it in electronica, you find it in, do you think that is something that you can find in your music, both with your solo work and Pixie Ninja? Maybe that's what the French writer was reacting to. I don't know.
Absolutely, there may be something there. It's like I stated earlier. For me, music is. I prefer. I get a feeling. I want I want it out, and for me, the best thing about music for me personally is the feeling. I like the feeling. I like to feel something.
Yeah. The atmosphere, the emotions of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So then when you sort of moved on from your black metal inspirations, and when you guys talked about starting to get into stuff like Englagård, White Willow, those early 90s bands, were those your first exposure to progressive rock and progressive music, or were there other bands that you sort of discovered the genre with?
Well, since since I was a youngster, I had my father liked Emerson, Lake and Palmer, Genesis, Yes, Rush, and Pink Floyd. The classics, of course. But many of those bands came later for me. So I guess it's maybe 10 years ago I started listening and buying the 70s progressive rock albums.
I see, yeah. So when you started listening to prog, then was it bands like Englagoid and White Willow that was the first ones where you yourself started to find the interest in that music?
Yeah, you could say that. I think when I started listening to Anekdoten and Englagoid, that was the peak of the prog for me personally. That's when I wanted to play music like that universe.
Yeah,
but that never happened. It never happened.
No, but I think even if you don't play that style of prog or whatever, I would say that there's a definite progressive ethos in the music that you guys create. So I'm guessing there are some inspirations that go through even if the music isn't the same, maybe.
Yeah. I think you're right.
I wanna, we're coming up towards the end of our talk, but I want to ask you now, what does the future hold for Marius Leirånes, both as a solo artist?
Peekaboo!
Yeah. I was just wondering if you could see yourself releasing a follow-up album to Langtidsperspektiv. And also I wondered, is this music that you created on your solo album, is this just a studio project for you, or could you imagine yourself doing some of this music live on stage?
That's a good question. I've actually not thought about performing my own music live. I don't think it will never happen. It's who knows? Maybe one day. But a follow-up of Langtidsperspektiv, I have not thought about that yet, but I have other ideas. But those ideas are expensive. I need other equipment and other synthesizers to make it come to life. So maybe by the end of this year or early next year, I would start fiddling with my shit.
Yeah. which really means then that you're saying what I hoped you would say, that there will be more music from you also as a solo artist. And then finally, of course, I have to ask, is there any movement in the Pixie Ninja camp? Are you writing new music? And now that the pandemic is slowly, I guess more slowly than we had hoped for, but it is sort of slowly returning back to normalcy. Are you gonna go out and play live with Pixie Ninja? Do you have any plans for that?
The only thing I can say is that you heard it first. It's the Pixie Ninja news. It's we have something just around the corner. So what I can say is that something is happening or already has happened. So it's I will let you know first.
That's good. So, well, that means that for fans of Pixie Ninja watching this, there will be something new coming up in some news or something coming up in not too long. That's what you're saying, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and watch this space, watch the Progspace. We'll be sure to bring you all the news of everything as soon as Marius here opens the doors a little for me here. Well, thank you so much, Marius, for being on the Prog Talks with me. Of course, you should all follow Marius and the Pixie Ninja on their social medias. I will put links in the description. And also, I highly recommend you to listen to Langtidsperspektiv if you haven't tried it already. You can find it on streaming platforms, or even better, go to Bandcamp and buy the album. It's absolutely worth owning. So, as always, thanks for watching, thanks for listening. Give us a like and a subscription if you enjoy what we're doing here. It helps us. Until next time, stay safe and keep spreading that prog love. The Prog Talks, produced by the Progspace. Main host, Rune Belsvik Reinås. Produced by Rune Belsvik Reinås, Vanessa and Matthias Kirsch. All graphics and animations by Vanessa Kirsch. Intro theme by Giuseppe Negri. Outro theme by Zach Munovitz. This was the Prog Talks by the Progspace. See you in a week.